I've been a trucker for almost a decade. I've seen just about everything the road can throw at me. Blizzards in Wyoming, heat waves in Arizona, jackknifed rigs, deer collisions, you name it. But there's one trip I'll never forget. One that still creeps into my dreams when I let my guard down. It happened during a routine haul from Denver to Seattle, somewhere in the backroads of Montana. And I swear to God, we never should have taken that detour. It started like any other job. I was driving solo, but my buddy Will was tagging along for the ride. He was between contracts and figured he'd join me for the drive, split the miles, swap stories, kill some time. We were both looking forward to the scenery, especially going through the Rockies. Dispatch had given us the usual route, up through I-25, cut west on I-90, but the weather didn't cooperate. A nasty snowstorm shut down a huge section of I-90 near Bozeman. DOT alerts lit up my GPS. The highway was closed for at least 24 hours, maybe more. I pulled over at a truck stop outside Billings to figure out our options. Will hopped out to grab coffee and a snack while I called dispatch. After a few minutes, they rerouted us through a secondary highway, something called Route 287, with a shortcut through forest roads to reconnect west of the shutdown. The dispatcher warned it'd be slower, but still passable. We had chains and fuel. I figured, why not? We hit the road just before dusk. As we left the main highway behind, the scenery got more raw. Dense pine forests swallowed the sides of the road. Snow clung to the branches like the world had frozen in mid-breath. There were fewer signs. No towns, no traffic. We passed a lonely diner, maybe 20 miles in, a squat building with flickering neon and a half-buried parking lot. Will suggested we grab something hot before the real driving began. I wasn't hungry, but I figured it couldn't hurt to get off the road for a minute. Inside, the place was silent. A radio played static in the background. There were maybe 3 other people, 2 old-timers, hunched at the bar, and a woman behind the counter who barely looked up. We ordered 2 coffees and some eggs and sat in a booth near the window. Will joked about the place, said it looked like a murder scene from some backwoods horror movie. I laughed, but it felt forced. The vibe was off. As we finished eating and got ready to leave, one of the old men at the bar turned slightly. His voice was gravelly and low, like it hadn't been used in years. He didn't look at us when he spoke. "Road's not what it used to be," he muttered. "They took it over years back. Folks that don't belong to no town. You drive it at night, you might not come back right." Will raised an eyebrow at me, smirking. I gave the guy a polite nod, thinking he was just a crazy local trying to scare out-eaters. We paid, thanked the waitress, and got back on the road. About an hour in, the sun dropped behind the mountains. The temperature fell fast. My GPS started lagging. The signal flickered and jumped. 1 second, we were on 287. The next it said unknown road. Will tried to make light of it. "Maybe we're in one of those Twilight Zone spots, man," he joked, lighting a cigarette. But I didn't laugh. That stretch of forest was too quiet. No animals, no wind. The snow had stopped, but the silence pressed in like cotton stuffed in your ears. Even the engine seemed quieter, like it was muffled. We came across a sign. An old wooden thing, half covered in snow. The paint was peeling, but I could still make out the words, "Crooked Pine Trail, use caution." Will frowned. This part wasn't on the map, was it? I checked the GPS again. Just a spinning blue dot. No road name, no reroute. We'll reconnect to 287 ahead, I said. Might just be a logging road. It's fine. The truck rumbled forward, tires crunching over packed snow. The trees closed in tighter on both sides. My headlights barely pierced the blackness beyond the road. I slowed down to 30, then 20. Every curve felt sharper, every bump louder. Then we saw it. A clearing up ahead, where the road split 3 ways. There was no signage, just a rusted-out vehicle, half buried in the snow off to the right. An old pickup, its windshield shattered, doors open. No footprints around it, no sign of life. Will leaned forward. You sure about this, man? I don't see another option. I picked the left fork. It seemed better maintained. But just a few minutes down that path, we spotted something in the road. A figure, standing dead center, arms at their sides, wearing dark clothing. No reflective gear, no flashlight. I hit the brakes hard. The trailer fishtailed slightly before we came to a stop, maybe 30 feet from them. Is that a person? Will whispered. The figure didn't move. I flicked the high beams on. That's when we saw the mask. A white, expressionless face. Blank eyes. No features. Just staring. And then, just as slowly, it turned and walked off the road into the woods. I didn't wait. I hit the gas, tires spinning slightly before catching. We passed the spot where it had stood. There were no footprints in the snow. Will didn't speak for the next 20 minutes. We didn't speak for the last 20 minutes. Not because we were trying to stay quiet, just because neither of us knew what to say. The road kept narrowing, winding deeper into what felt like a different world. The trees leaned in closer now, almost like they were trying to block out the sky. I kept waiting to see headlights from the other direction. A car, a snowplow, anything. But we were alone. Will finally broke the silence. That mask. What the hell was that? Some weird-ass hunter? Prank? I didn't answer. My knuckles were white on the wheel. I didn't want to say what I was really thinking. There were no tracks in the snow. The temperature outside dropped fast. It was showing 14 degrees on the dash now, but inside the cab, it felt colder than it should. I turned up the heater. Will rubbed his arms and kept looking out the window like he was expecting something to leap out of the trees. The GPS was completely dead now. Just a spinning blue dot on an empty grid. No reception. No map. No time estimate. I focused on the road. Just keep moving forward. That was my rule. But then we saw the lights. Up ahead, through the trees, faint, orange-yellow glows. It looked like a row of lanterns, or maybe fire torches. I slowed the truck, headlights casting shadows that danced across the snow. As we got closer, we realized they were lining a path that led off the main road. There was a wooden archway, half-rotted, with some kind of hand-carved text barely visible in the dark. We couldn't read it, but something about the shape of the lettering, the uneven strokes, made my stomach churn. We both stared at the path. Looks like a camp, Will guessed. Should we check it out? I was about to say no, absolutely not. But then we heard something else. A bell. Same soft, rhythmic ringing I thought I'd imagined earlier. It was coming from beyond the archway, down that path. Nope, I floored it. We sped past the turnoff, and I didn't take my foot off the gas for the next 5 miles. The trees blurred. My heart thudded. I just kept my eyes forward, and that's when the road ended. Just like that. No warning, no barrier, no flashing signs. Just a sudden stop at the edge of what looked like a ravine, maybe 20 feet deep. The brakes screeched as we skidded to a halt just feet from the edge. The trailer fishtailed, snow flying everywhere. Will screamed something. I barely heard him. When we finally stopped, the engine idling in the silence, I let out a breath I didn't know I was holding. Will leaned forward, looking at the road ahead. Or rather, the lack of it. Jesus. There's nothing here, it just ends. I backed up slowly, turned the rig around, and drove back the way we came. That's when things got worse. The lanterns were gone, the archway, gone. Even the weird old pickup we saw before, vanished. What the hell is happening? Will muttered. He pulled out his phone again, hoping for signal. Nothing. We were in a loop, a goddamn loop. Trees that had once felt familiar now felt alien. My hands shook as I gripped the wheel. Something was wrong with the forest. It was alive, not in a spiritual, mystical way, but in a watching, calculating way, like it was waiting. Then we saw the figure again. This time, not one, but three, all wearing masks, standing at even distance along the roadside, perfectly still, perfectly silent, no footprints. I didn't slow down. I drove past them. I didn't look. Will started crying softly, and then the truck died. Everything, the engine, the dash lights, the heater, just cut out. We rolled to a stop. Dead silence. Will hit the dashboard. Try again. Please, man, try again. I turned the key. Nothing. Not even a click. And then, knock, knock, knock. On Will's window. 3 soft taps. We both turned, and I'll never forget what I saw. It wasn't a person. It wasn't human. It had the shape of a man, maybe, but its limbs were wrong. Too long. Joints bent backward. The mask on its face wasn't a mask anymore. It was a skull, or something pretending to be one. Yellowed, cracked, hollow eyes. Will screamed. I grabbed the flashlight from the glove box and flipped it on. Nothing. The figure was gone. We jumped out of the truck, into the cold. We didn't care. We couldn't stay inside. We ran, stumbled through the snow, and that's when we saw it. Headlights. Far off. Through the trees. Not just one set, but 2, 3, 4. A convoy. Real trucks, real drivers. We sprinted toward them like our lives depended on it, because they did. We ran like hell through the snow, slipping, panting, hearts racing, chasing the only real lights we'd seen in hours. The forest seemed to stretch on forever, but the headlights got closer, brighter. When we finally broke through the trees, we stumbled onto a wide logging road where 4 big rigs were parked in a line. Their drivers were standing around one of the trucks, talking. One of them saw us first. "Whoa, you boys okay?" We were too out of breath to answer. Will collapsed to his knees, gasping. I managed to get out. "Truck died. Back there. Something's out there. In the woods." The drivers looked at each other. Then one guy, older, with a greying beard and a heavy coat, stepped forward. "You came through Crooked Pine, didn't you?" I nodded. He didn't ask anything else, just pointed to his truck. "Get in. You're not staying out here." We didn't argue. One of the other drivers radioed in to dispatch to report a dead rig and 2 stranded drivers. But when he asked for coordinates, something strange happened. His GPS froze. "This stretch eats signal," he muttered. "Always has." They drove us back toward the main road, and we sat in silence the whole way. Will kept looking over his shoulder like he expected something to follow. About an hour later, we made it to a small way station outpost where a state trooper was waiting. The drivers explained everything, well, the parts that made sense. Truck broke down, no signal. Creepy forest. I didn't mention the figures or the mask. I wasn't sure if I imagined half of it myself. The trooper offered to call in a tow for the truck and let us crash in the station's lounge until morning. It felt like we were safe, but I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that moment, the knock on the glass, that mask, or skull, or whatever it was. It didn't feel like a hallucination. Next morning, I went back with the tow driver. We found my truck, exactly where I left it. But something had changed. All over the cab, smeared on the mirrors, the doors, the windshield, were handprints. Dozens of them. Too small to be adults, some looked like they had claw marks at the fingertips. The mechanic refused to touch the truck. He muttered something about bad spirits and made the sign of the cross before getting back in his wrecker. We eventually got the truck hauled back to Billings. I told dispatch it had electrical failure. No mention of crooked pine. I didn't want to be labeled unstable, but I know what I saw. I know what followed us out of those woods, because the smell never left. That rotting, earthy, metallic smell. It stayed with me, in my clothes, in the cab, even after deep cleans. Will said it faded after a few weeks, but it never left me. 2 months later, I found a small bone under my passenger seat, not from any animal I recognized. It was sharp, curved, almost like a talon. I keep it in a box now, just to remind myself it was real. I stopped driving long haul after that. Local routes only. And I never take detours through forest roads. Because I don't think we just passed through something strange that night. I think we brought something back with us.